Hi there everyone, and welcome to the NSP UK training presentation on EverFlex. My name is Emma Whitnell and I'm going to be taking you through this presentation today. Now, EverFlex is an amazing product that has been designed specifically to support active and aging joints and connective tissue. So speaking of joints, we know that these are most used when people are active and do lots of exercise and physical activity, which is a very important part of a healthy lifestyle, as we know. But, one of the trade-offs is that this wear and tear and overuse of our joints can cause degeneration of our connective tissue and the healthy tissues within our joints, which I'll be talking about shortly. And that can obviously lead to pain and inflammation and immobility, which is obviously not a lot of fun. We want to keep active for as long as we can. So taking care and protecting our joints through activity and as we age is very, very important. So is keeping flexible. Obviously, we've got mobility and flexibility, which we need to consider. And of course, as we age, we know that naturally our flexibility does decline. So it's very important, just as keeping our bone density really strong and our bones really healthy, as we age, we need to look after our joint cartilage as well. And cartilage is basically a connective tissue that sits between the bones of any joint in the body. And the cartilage is there to give cushioning and support and nourishment to the joint as well. So without cartilage, unfortunately, we would get a lot of pain through movement, and that is what happens when people develop something like osteoarthritis. As cartilage disappears and wears down and degenerates, we get bone-on-bone rubbing, which is incredibly painful, and if you've ever experienced that, you will know. So looking after your joint cartilage to prevent or to put yourself in the best position to avoid something like osteoarthritis is obviously really important. Now, there are various kinds of joints in the body, but typically or essentially they all have the same basic anatomy and function. A joint, no matter what the joint, it will have some kind of cartilage or connective tissue between the different bones. But we're particularly interested today in talking about articular cartilage, which is also known as hyaline cartilage. And this is the cartilage that is found in synovial joints. And basically a synovial joint, if you imagine a knee joint or a shoulder joint or the hip joint, is a joint where movement takes place between the two articulating surfaces, so between the two bones basically. And a synovial joint is unique in that it contains something called a synovial cavity, and within this cavity is cartilage and synovial fluid, and the synovial fluid is that which lubricates and nourishes the joint. So what happens when cartilage degenerates and breaks down, we can also get a drying up of the synovial fluid, and that is obviously not a great picture for long-term joint health. So our cartilage acts as a shock absorber. And as I've already said, it prevents our bones from grinding against each other, which would cause an incredible amount of pain. What's really important to know is that cartilage doesn't have its own blood supply. So other soft tissues in the body will have their own blood supply, albeit maybe limited, but they will be able to get nutrients from the blood coming in. And if there is damage or degeneration or wear and tear, our blood supply can give nutrients to a lot of tissues, and that's how they heal. Cartilage unfortunately doesn't have that luxury, so our cartilage health relies on us taking on a good nutritional supplement to provide a lot of the nutrients needed to keep our joints and our joint tissues really healthy. Let's take a look at a healthy knee joint, which is an example of a synovial joint within the body. Remembering that a synovial joint has a joint cavity or capsule, and the synovial fluid sits within that cavity or that capsule, lubricating the articular cartilage. In this image, the articular cartilage is the grey film that sits on the ends of the bones, and the synovial fluid is depicted by the blue fluid that's sitting quite closely there to the bones. Remembering that without that fluid, our cartilage couldn't get the nutrition and the lubrication and the nourishment that it really needs to be a healthy joint. And as we know, cartilage within a synovial joint is very susceptible to damage and degeneration. About 10,000 people in the UK every year will suffer some serious cartilage issues. Accidental injuries such as impact injuries or twisting and turning motions causing injury are most common in the younger population, whereas quite obviously wear and tear is more common in people over the age of 50. This is obviously what gives rise to osteoarthritis, which is essentially inflammation of the joints. If our cartilage is worn away, we get irritation, bone-on-bone wearing, that causes inflammation, and any word that ends in itis, referring to the body, means inflammation, and obviously osteo meaning inflammation of the joints. So what else will cause this degeneration and breakdown of cartilage? Well, we know aging already will cause cartilage to become thinner. It will also cause the synovial fluids to dry out. Therefore, our cartilage is not going to get a lot of the nourishment that it needs. Previous injuries, so seemingly minor injuries, even from your youth, can contribute to breakdown and degeneration as you get older. Again, even just smaller injuries, which can certainly upset the mechanics of your body. So, for example, you could have an injury to your ankle, and then that could cause a change in the mechanics at your knee and your hip joint, and then that can lead on to degeneration at those joints. Now, degeneration, as I've already said, will lead to inflammation and free radical damage. And that can only really be offset by antioxidants in the body. So at this point, I would really strongly suggest considering your high antioxidant product, Zambrosa, to go alongside EverFlex. And of course, excess weight can also contribute to making a joint more vulnerable to long-term damage. So let me introduce to you EverFlex. Now, EverFlex, as I said earlier, is an amazing product, and it has been specifically formulated to help maintain healthy joints. And it does this by providing a synergistic combination of 3 very important nutrients, which are essentially the building blocks for healthy cartilage and healthy joint tissue. The first key ingredient in EverFlex is glucosamine, which is an amino sugar and provides the base material for ligaments, tendons, and of course synovial fluid. Studies have certainly shown that glucosamine is helpful in supporting healthy joints, but unfortunately there are no major food sources available for glucosamine. It can be made by the body, but of course the ability for our bodies to do this, as we've established already, diminishes with age. So it's very important to take glucosamine in through supplementation. And the glucosamine that is within EverFlex is in the form of glucosamine hydrochloride, which is actually much more bioavailable, meaning it can be absorbed better by the body than the other form, glucosamine sulfate. So the glucosamine within EverFlex actually provides the body with higher levels of active glucosamine, as in it's going to do a much better job at nourishing the joints than an alternative glucosamine that may come in the form of glucosamine sulfate. The second ingredient in EverFlex is chondroitin sulfate, which is a chain of sugars found naturally occurring within joints and connective tissue. But this nutrient will help to protect joint cartilage in 2 different ways. Firstly, it will help to produce new cartilage proteins for cartilage synthesis, and secondly, it helps to interfere, or it does interfere, with an enzyme that actually destroys cartilage. So in essence, it acts like a free radical protector or an antioxidant for cartilage itself. Chondroitin also attracts and maintains fluid in and around the joint, so that synovial fluid is attracted to areas where chondroitin exists. So that obviously helps to bring nourishment and nutrients to the tissues. And the great thing about chondroitin is that it's not metabolized in the liver, so it doesn't interfere with other conventional drugs. So it's very safe to use with any medications that clients may be on. And finally, the third ingredient is MSM, which stands for methyl sulfonyl methane. And this ingredient contains a very bioavailable form of sulfur, which is really important in the formulation of cartilage and connective tissue within the body. Like chondroitin, it acts as an antioxidant, a protector for cartilage. By doing so, it helps to remove toxicity from the body, particularly toxicity in and around joints. And a benefit of this is that it helps to nourish hair, skin, and nails. So EverFlex is actually a really great product to use in conjunction with things like horsetail and rosemary and omega-3 if you're looking to support those kind of connective tissues and proteins within the body as well. Let's take a look at the ingredient breakdown. So we know there's the chondroitin, the glucosamine, and the MSM. EverFlex contains 420 milligrams of the glucosamine hydrochloride. Don't forget that is the bioavailable version of glucosamine. 420 milligrams of the methyl sulfonyl methane, the MSM, and 110 milligrams of the chondroitin sulfate. So you take 2 tablets as a serving, and that provides 1900 milligrams of this combination, this proprietary blend. There is no yeast, gluten, or dairy in this product, so very safe and effective for people who have allergies. But there's just one thing to note, that the glucosamine does come from crab shells, so just warn any vegetarian, vegan clients that that is in the product. So in summary, we know it's a very important part of a healthy lifestyle to stay active, but as we age and the more active we are, the chances of our joints breaking down and degenerating is very high. So it's very important to keep our bodies healthy through good nutrition, through good diet, but also through good supplementation, and the right supplementation as well, the very specific nutrients that are going to help the joint tissues to stay as healthy as they can. That's what EverFlex can help with. It will help to support the natural function of our joints and of our soft tissues for as long as possible. We know there's 3 key ingredients in EverFlex. The synergistic blend of glucosamine, chondroitin, and MSM together makes for a very powerful joint support product. And we recommend that for best results, you take 2 tablets twice a day with a meal. So thank you all very much for tuning in and listening about EverFlex today. We hope to see you very soon on our next training event.